The Internet Archive was just hacked. It seems like every month I'm hearing something about the Internet Archive being affected either by some kind of legal team trying to take action against them for something that was posted on their website, or at this point, some kind of DDoS attacks that have been happening, and now a full-on hack, which has compromised 31 million users of data, by the way. I'm constantly seeing attacks against what is basically a website that is entirely dedicated to the preservation of not only our internet history, but also any form of content that may not be accessible anywhere else. There is a lot of content on the Internet Archive that can only be found on said website. And I'm someone whose most of their videos would not even exist if it wasn't for the Internet Archive providing me some means of actually making these videos. And what I mean by that is, one, a lot of information is on old websites that can only be accessed through the Wayback Machine. Two, a lot of my content also includes either links from the Internet Archive, or I had to go to the Internet Archive to retrieve certain data that I needed for my videos. Three, a lot of times the Internet Archive has access to actual content, such as abandonware, that you can't get anywhere else. I myself have a lot of data from the Internet Archive that I've saved for myself because there's a lot of things like old TV shows that you can't find anywhere else because they're just non-existent. They're from defunct channels, or documentaries detailing very interesting information, especially about game development, that isn't possible to access anymore without the help of the Internet Archive. Or what if you're someone like me who also likes to play older games, especially old MMORPGs? For example, one of my favorite games is Star Wars Galaxies. I still play on the private servers to this day. But here's something interesting about Star Wars Galaxies. A lot of the information on the game is still situated on websites on the Wayback Machine. If you Google Star Wars Galaxies How to Unlock Jedi or Star Wars Galaxies Guide to Commando Profession, you will literally be linked to a Wayback Machine website article that was made back in like 2003 or 2004. This right here could disappear if something happens to the Wayback Machine. A lot of this information that is still useful to this day could just go away, and if it's not properly saved or archived somewhere else, it's just going to be gone, and then someone else is going to have to either know this information and rewrite it, or someone else is going to have to just try to figure out what it was. And I want to be very clear, a lot of this information is still used to help actively develop for these private server projects. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll gather information from pieces of the internet that are still around, like history, and they'll use that to help make sure that their server is still running a very authentic version of the game, especially if they're reverse engineering the code like the emulator servers are for Star Wars Galaxies. Now, that's just one example. Imagine tomorrow the Internet Archive goes down. Do you know how many old fixes for older games are still locked on the Internet Archive because the original files that were posted on the original websites that they are part of are no longer available? For example, a lot of widescreen patches that I have for older games, or even mods for older games that I felt like were maybe somewhat necessary, will not be accessible if the Internet Archive goes down because that's the only place I can find them. I'll give you an example. The Freelancer game. There are some places to find this game. It's abandonware. There's no other way to get it other than either buying the original disc off eBay or downloading it from the Internet Archive or some similar website. However, the safest method of getting this game is through the Internet Archive, because not only does it give you the game, but it also has the widescreen patch and some other things to make the game actually run smoothly. And it is packaged up quite nicely. This game could become infinitely more difficult to play in 2025 if the Internet Archive ceases to exist. The reason I'm making this video is because I'm very passionate about preservation, but not just preservation because I want certain pieces of media to stay forever, but also for information's sake. A lot of information, whether it's pertaining to a video game or something far more important, is actually still on the internet, but it can be kind of ancient even if it's still relevant, and it may not be properly saved outside of a couple websites that are safe to use. A lot of that information that you might be looking for might still be out there, but it might not be somewhere that's easy to access, or might not even be entirely safe. We don't know. The Internet Archive is, for the most part, very safe. Of course, there are some outliers, but regardless of all that, the Internet Archive is actually a source of good. It is making sure that we have some way to access a lot of this important information to us, and there is some form of preservation even if the information isn't important. And right now, preserving things is very important. There's a lot of movements to try to preserve, for example, games from being taken away from you after you paid for them, or preventing you from getting your digital goods taken from you. But we're actually living in an age where even your physical goods don't even belong to you anymore. What I mean by that is I, for the longest time, worked in a certain field. And in this field, we dealt with something that was called VERO, or Verified Rights Ownership. You'll see it a lot if you're someone who likes to sell on eBay. Basically, Verified Rights Ownership basically means that the person that owns a certain trademark can come in and say, you are infringing on their rights by selling an item. So this might seem like initially it's to prevent someone from, let's say, maliciously selling a counterfeit, or, stealing an item and then trying to sell it on eBay or something. However, it's more often than not, in my experience, used for maliciousness. And I say that as someone who actually has experience in seeing the back end and behind the curtain. You see, a lot of times, Vero is used as a way to bully smaller sellers. And what they do is they essentially say, I don't have an authorized vendor to sell my product. For example, and I'm not going to use a real company's name because I don't want to cause any trouble for myself, especially because I'm kind of giving a little bit of maybe quote unquote insider information. But let's just look at like a fake company. Let's say the UAC, Union Aerospace Corporation from Doom. Let's say you go to the UAC store and you buy yourself a little data pad. And that data pad has UAC logo on it because it's their made product. Now, it's your data pad. You bought it. For all intents and purposes, you can take that home and you can do whatever you want with it. You can take it home and give it away. You can take it home and install a bunch of stuff on it and use it for your own use, or you can take it home and destroy it because it's your item. You can do whatever you want with it. However, what if you want to sell it? What if you say, hey, I got a good deal on this and I can go turn a profit on it? Or let's say I used it for 2 years and I don't want it anymore because I'm not using it. So I'm going to go sell it. You log on to eBay, you make an account, you place your item up for sale. I want $100 for my UAC data pad. And then all of a sudden, your item is taken down and your account has an infraction against it and you're being threatened to be banned from the website permanently. Why? Because the UAC filed a Vero claim against you. The UAC is basically saying, I don't have an authorized vendor, so there's no way you can be selling a UAC data pad. And so when you try to sell it, they're going to essentially bully you, even if you have the receipt and every other piece of information that proves that you have an authentic item. They'll still be able to have your item taken down, and the third-party website that's involved in this, such as eBay, for example, will not be able to really get involved because their hands are tied legally and they're not going to fight a legal battle on your behalf. So a lot of times, a lot of companies will use this to bully someone who's just trying to sell something that they owned and want to get rid of. It's completely unfair. You own the item. You should be allowed to do what you want with it. So to tell me that I can't sell something I went and bought myself is just ridiculous. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't sit here and say that I know exactly how the law works. But I can say, just like DMCAs, cease and desist, and other legal tools, companies and individuals use these to abuse others who don't have the power to necessarily fight back for themselves, because a lot of times legal fights require money. It's not easy, right? And sometimes, a lot of times actually, they just have to accept it and deal with it, even at their own detriment. Even if you own something right now, it doesn't belong to you because someone can come and say it doesn't truly belong to you, and it's just accepted. So, rant aside, my point is that I care a lot about making sure that people aren't experiencing that as much as I possibly can. So in this case, I see how the Internet Archive is essentially being attacked both legally and illegally lately, and I know for a fact that the Internet Archive is not in a great place. And honestly, I'm worried that they're not going to be around for the next few years. So I say this, if you're someone that watched my video and there is something on the Internet Archive you care a lot about that you download or use regularly, I recommend you try to find a way to preserve it for yourself. Just save it. Even if you're not going to share it, save it for yourself, because there might come a time where you can't access that ever again and it's just lost of time. A lot of things are starting to become that way. We are losing things in front of our eyes. Now, take this next statement with a bit of a grain of salt. You hear this a lot. The comparison of the Internet Archive is like the burning of Alexandria. I'm not going to compare it to that, but I will say this. The burning of Alexandria, we can only guess sometimes what could have all been lost there. We can only fathom some of it. We don't know entirely every piece of detail of what was lost. But the Internet Archive is different. We're watching it get destroyed in front of us. We knowingly see that information that can only be accessed there, is going to potentially get wiped out or has been wiped out, and we're just watching it happen. However, we have time to still save things. We have time to still copy data and, hold on to it, anything that's important to us. So I'll say this with the Internet Archive, because I always try to be a positive person. Understand that a lot of that information will survive even if the Internet Archive ceases to, but a lot of it also won't. So if it's important to you, even if it's just something random and you use it every now and then, go in there and save it for yourself. Don't let it be lost. And maybe someday you can be the person that shares it to other people who need it. And that's my ultimate message here. We can't rely on the idea that even the Internet Archive will survive forever, even if to stand on principle. But we do need to understand that if we want to preserve a lot of this data and media that's important to us, we have to take the steps to preserve it ourselves. Even if we don't have the ability to preserve it all, we can still preserve the most important things to us. So my point is, you're not entirely powerless in this situation. Yes, you can't stop whatever happens to the Internet Archive. I mean, unless maybe you are someone who's capable of doing that. Maybe you have a lot of money and legal power. But if you are someone who's like me, who just appreciates things and wants to make sure we don't lose the digital history that we have been involved in our entire lives, then you're going to want to take a few steps and preserve that data that's important to you. My channel, like I said, has always been a force of positivity. That's what I want it to be. But not everything in the world is positive, and things that affect me and you, I'm going to talk about. In this case, the Internet Archive affects everyone as far as I'm concerned. So if you do care about the Internet Archive or anything that's on it, once again, so go in there and take what you can that matters to you, because that data doesn't just belong to you or me. It belongs to everyone. And once it's gone for good, and no one will be able to use it ever again. This has been Java. Thank you so much for listening to my rant. I'm sorry if this was a bit of a change from my usual videos. I just needed to talk about this because to me it's a very important subject. I'll be getting back to my regular uploads after this. I just wanted to talk about this a bit. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me. Have a good rest of your day.